You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Well, today, it appears, is Mother's Day. That's the way it appears, at least. Yet another consumer holiday, glutted with gift buying and receiving, card writing and sending, brunching, or at the very least telephoning, and in general appreciating people who are mothers in ways most people don't manage to do on any other day of the year. But not that kind of commercialism and sentimentality for our show, as you might have imagined. We are going to look at the original Mother's Day, how it was conceived, by whom and why, what it meant, and how it's been diluted and corrupted. My special guest today is historian Charlotte Gordon, a returning visitor who last year was here discussing her scholarly yet lively introduction to a reissue of the book Frankenstein, written by the only 19-year-old Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Charlotte is also, happily, a feminist, and a few years ago she gave us a remarkable dual biography on Mary Wollstonecraft, author of A Vindication on the Rights of Women, and the daughter she never knew, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, who later on had a passionate relationship with the poet Percy Shelley. The book was called Romantic Outlaws. Well, I reread it recently, and I was blown away all over again. So Charlotte is back with us, this time to discuss the extraordinary mother-daughter duo, which is perfect for a Mother's Day program, a contrarian one, since both Marys were fierce rebels. And then, of course, there's fighting words at the end of the program. So let's get started by going inside the consumer holiday and inside the headlines. Mother's Day, as we know it, began in the United States in the early 20th century. That is, it's not related to the many traditional celebrations of fertility, maternity, and motherhood that have persisted globally over thousands of years, from the Greek worship of Cybele to the Roman worship of Rhea and the Christian venerations of Mary. In fact, the most ancient traditions and representations are prehistoric. The Willendorf Venus, for example. They're all of a mother divinity, a fertility goddess, giving birth to the world in various forms. And to this day, in the mountains of southern Spain, village women still kneel and murmur their Christian rosaries, facing the full moon. Easter itself derives from the name of the goddess Estra, also the root word for estrogen. Little etymological aside there. Meanwhile, back in the so-called developed world, we are reduced to banal Hallmark kitsch. But it wasn't always that way. In 1907, Anna Jarvis held a memorial service for her mother at St. Andrew's Methodist Church in Grafton, West Virginia. Her campaign to make Mother's Day a recognized holiday in the United States had begun 2 years earlier, when her mother, Anne Reeves Jarvis, had died. Anne Reeves Jarvis had been a peace activist who cared for soldiers both North and South who'd been wounded in the Civil War. She also had created Mother's Day work clubs to address public health issues, and she and Julia Ward Howe, another suffragist and peace activist, then as now they often overlapped, began working together. Julia Ward Howe, herself a poet and author of the lyrics to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, had been urging the creation of a Mother's Day dedicated to peace for almost 50 years before it became an official holiday. She had first made her Mother's Day proclamation as early as 1870, calling on mothers of all nationalities to band together and promote, quote, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace, close quote. It's so interesting that suffrage, peace, and abolition of slavery all intersected. In 1907, Anna Jarvis still wanted to honor this intention of her mother's and of Julia Ward Howe. In 1908, the U.S. Congress rejected the proposal to make Mother's Day an official holiday, joking, "Ho, ho, ho, then they'd have to proclaim a Mothers-in-Law Day, ho, ho." Nevertheless, because of Anna Jarvis's dogged persistence, by 1911, all U.S. states observed the holiday, with some of them officially recognizing it as a local holiday. In 1914, then-President Woodrow Wilson, no friend of suffrage, signed a proclamation designating Mother's Day on the second Sunday in May as a national holiday. Anna Jarvis herself was angered by the commercialization of the day. As early as the 1920s, Hallmark cards and other businesses had started marketing merchandise. Anna believed they were exploiting the concept that the holiday was not about profit, you think? So she organized boycotts, she threatened lawsuits against the companies involved. She protested at the Candy Makers Convention in Philadelphia and at a meeting of American War Mothers in 1925, where she was arrested for disturbing the peace by protesting the selling of carnations by the War Mothers to raise money for their group. Sadly, it would appear that she lost the battle. Internationally, concerns emerged about the exclusivity of Mother's Day having a biological definition of motherhood. Constance Adelaide Smith took to advocating for, quote, Mothering Sunday as an equivalent, referring to traditions like Mother Church and Mother Nature. Her efforts did succeed in the British Isles and other parts of the English-speaking world. Some countries, Russia for example, celebrate March 8th, International Women's Day, instead of Mother's Day, or they celebrate both holidays, as they do in the Ukraine. International Women's Day is increasing in status, but much of the Muslim world, from Egypt and Iraq through Palestine and Saudi Arabia, still celebrates Mother's Day, doing so on March 21st, however, the spring equinox, hearkening back to its fertility roots. In Armenia, April 7th marks, wait for it, Motherhood and Beauty Day. Motherhood and Beauty, yep. South Korea recognizes Parents' Day on May 8th, and a handful of countries, including France and Sweden, mobilize for mothers in a somewhat contorted fashion on the last Sunday of May, or sometimes the first Sunday of June, if the last Sunday of May is Pentecost. But most of the rest of the world falls in step on the second Sunday of May, all that remains of Anna Jarvis's original plan. Not everyone, however, engages in a spending frenzy rivaling Christmas the way the United States does. The day has birthed its own progeny, such as Mothers-in-Law Day, Stepmother's Day, Grandmother's Day, Adoptive Mother's Day, Daughter's Day, Son's Day, and even Child-Free Day. This last is a feminist invention, but the rest are Hallmark holidays all, whatever the market will bear. Interestingly, however, despite heroic efforts by businesses and corporations, and even Hallmark, to shove Father's Day down our throats for an equal purchasing spree, Father's Day is way, way, way behind. We have to take a short break here, but did you know that Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication on the Rights of Women was so popular it became a bestseller in its time? For that matter, did you know that her daughter, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin Shelley, supported herself and her children long after Shelley died? Stay tuned. Coming right up, our guest, Charlotte Gordon. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
My guest today for the conversation is Charlotte Gordon, an award-winning author whose work has appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, among other publications. Her latest book, Romantic Outlaws, The Extraordinary Lives of Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley, in 2015 won the National Book Critics Circle Award. She has also published Mistress Bradstreet, The Untold Story of America's First Poet, that was in 2005, and The Woman Who Named God, Abraham's Dilemma and the Birth of Three Faiths. A distinguished professor of the humanities at Endicott College, Charlotte received her A.B. from Harvard and her Ph.D. from Boston University. Most recently, she has written the introduction to Penguin's reissue of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Here is Charlotte Gordon returning to Women's Media Center Live. Charlotte Gordon, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live. It's so good to have you back again.
I am so happy to be here. It's such an honor.
Well, listen, my dear, I read this remarkable book when it first came out. I think, 2015, 4 years ago?
Yes.
Romantic Outlaws, The Extraordinary, and I'll say, Lives of Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley. And it won the National Book Critics Circle Award and all sorts of other things, as well it should have. But it's really an extraordinary. First of all, the idea of a dual biography. I don't know that anybody else has ever done. Have they? Has anybody else done?
No, not of Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley. And I think
Of anybody.
The funny thing is, there must be. Now I'm thinking about those books. I think written by friends of yours that are sort of collective portraits, like I've forgotten the name of the book, the one about marriage, women in marriage and women writers.
That's different. This is very specifically the duet. Nobody did a joint biography of, say, Adams and Jefferson. There are many individual biographies, but nobody. I think that in itself is a really unusual and fascinating development. But I have to tell you, this time around, rereading it, wow. Well, I have so many things I need to ask you. Oh, God, Charlotte. Okay, first of all, last time around, I was sort of obsessed with the relationships among and between the women, with Jane/Claire and the various Fannies and all of that. And that was very important, and obviously that's what I focused on. But this time around, all these other layers came through somehow. The fact that they were always, all of them, both the mother and her circle and the daughter and hers, obsessed with money. Not enough of it, right on the edge of poorness. Despite the fact that the men, notably Shelley and Byron, had noble families who were parsimonious about spitting forth money, and when they did, the men went ahead and just sort of spent it with largesse. That was one thing. Another thing was, I have to ask you, listen, Charlotte, Byron was such a prick. I've never really liked him, if truth be told, but this time around he emerged traveling with this whole menagerie of bears and peacocks and what he did to women, unspeakable, and his own incestual relationship with Augusta. And he just was such an egotistical rock star, trasher of hotel rooms. And Shelley, a little bit not so great either, although he was by far, I think, the better poet. but he never helped with the baby or the housework or the children or the anything. All of that just gave me an entire new take. I emerged this time around really, really snippety about the men.
I think that's really true. And I think, I was just talking to a book group last night, and they were asking why Mary Shelley's father thought he shouldn't work and that his daughter, Mary Shelley, should work and supply him with money.
Oh, yeah.
And,
he was another prick. God. Yeah, God.
I think that there was a sense that the women, both Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley, lived in a world in which men were the geniuses and women were the support team.
Right.
And I think that's one reason why Mary Wollstonecraft was so revolutionary, is because she said to men in general, but then to her husband, Godwin, my time is worth as much as yours.
Yeah.
And that seems like such a quiet thing to say today, but it was truly shocking when she said it at the end of the 18th century.
Yeah.
And it was so revolutionary that when Virginia Woolf was trying to figure out how to have a relationship with her husband, she looked to Mary Wollstonecraft, who had somehow figured out a way to try at least to be on an equal standing with William Godwin, her husband.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it still was operative between me and my former husband, my ex-husband, who had great man syndrome. And when I was a very young wife and a young poet, I thought he had great man syndrome as well. So it was my job to support him and tiptoe around the house with a kind of hush, Norman's working attitude.
Yes,
But to find it this entrenched that far back and to have it color Byron and Shelley for me, and Godwin, because Godwin was the great husband of, and yet his whitewashing of the wife, and his attitude in the memoir after she was long gone, and his attitude toward his daughter, which was so hypocritical. On the one hand, Shelley, give me money. On the other hand, you may never cross my threshold again. I want to go pick at his house.
I know. There is a way in which, I think it's very dangerous. And we talk about this a lot in my classes, the idea that the ideas are more important than how we live our everyday lives, and the constant equity that the women faced every minute of the day, how that was just part of the fabric of their lives.
Right.
I have to say that as the writer, I take great joy in the fact that we still know who Mary Wollstonecraft is, and we still read Mary Shelley, and we don't even know who William Godwin is, who was Mary Wollstonecraft's husband and was the, famous guy of the period.
Yeah.
And, Robin, get this, my students hardly read Shelley and Byron anymore, but they all read Frankenstein.
Isn't that interesting? That's the ultimate revenge. That's beautiful.
It really is. Oh, I wish I could tell them. I wish I could go back and say, hang on, your time will come.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that surfaced for me as well was that Vindication came out and sold stunningly well. I mean, incredibly well. In the midst of not just the French Revolution and the American Revolution, but Jefferson. I mean, recently I've been rereading The Hemmingses of Monticello by Annette Gordon Reed and waiting around in the framers. And Jefferson was definitely a bookophile. I mean, he wept when his library had to be sold. So he knew everything, and he knew very well what was being published in England. He knew very well what was being published in France, and how he could have not just tunnel vision about slavery, but about women as well in the same years when Vindication was being published is stunning. It meant more compartmentalization. It just took my breath away. And
I think it draws even more of a comparison between him and Adams.
Yes.
I think so interesting that the Adamses both read her.
Yep.
And that Abigail adored her.
Yep.
And John, of course, fought with her. But I think that is a very interesting distinction.
You're absolutely right. I mean, one of the treasures of this read through was encountering all. I mean, I read they'd registered, but I'd kind of skipped over them because, as I say, I was so focusing on the relationships between the women and the rivalry between the sisters and so on. But the cameos of people who sort of play through the Adamses, Aaron Burr, Tom Paine. Tom Paine as a dinner companion at some certain point, and Mama Wollstonecraft just totally scintillates and takes over the whole dinner party. Coleridge, all the French radicals. It's just extraordinary. I mean, and off there, I don't know that they actually met. I don't think so. But off there in the meanwhile was Jane Austen finishing, I think it was Mansfield Park. What a circle of people. The ones who did connect with each other. This is the best thing I've heard about Aaron Burr ever, that he kind of came and sat at Mama's feet and was so enamored of her and of feminism. Yeah. You cast a really wide net. It's incredible. And the Robespierre and anti-feminist backlash. I always wondered what happened to all that amazing pro-feminist agitation in the French Revolution. Did it fade away? Did it this? Did it that? This time around, I came up against it full frontal attack. It was Robespierre and everybody else saying, now you've gone too far, basically.
That's right. They just put their feet right down on the whole movement and said, women need to stay in the home. It was incredibly repressive, and it was so tragic for those early activists, the Gouge and Wollstonecraft, who had really believed this was the dawning of a new era.
Yeah.
And I learned so much, writing this book about how we believe when we're in the midst of, a time of activism. Like, I, of course, want to ask you about you in the 70s. We think this is it.
Right.
This is the change that has come, and here we are, and it will all be progress from here on out.
Yeah.
And then so often there's this terrible reaction.
Yeah.
And so I think, we go from Obama to Trump, and we go from women's rights and the ERA to Phyllis Schlafly. I mean, I think Wollstonecraft and Shelley tell a story that is both unfamiliar to us because it's so long ago, but so familiar.
Oh, so totally familiar. This is the kind of hypocrisy in the left that I wrote about in Goodbye to All That. I mean, this is the kind. It's like revisiting very familiar ground. That you expect backlash from the right, but you don't expect it from your brothers and your Brave New World comrades, and then they're the ones who really shaft you. And the hypocrisy of the Godwins and the Byrons and that whole even the anti-marriage position that then conveniently gets overlooked or changed, or the mores run very deep and they run very sexist. And the women take it on the chin and continue going. That's the amazing thing. They continue going. I wanted to ask you, what do you think? This is an unfair question, but do you think that if Mary Wollstonecraft had been able to live and not died of puerperal fever, tragically, do you think that I'm not going to say what I think. I'll ask you. Do you think that she would have shared Godwin's distaste, to say the least, for the daughter's love affair with Shelley?
Absolutely not.
Aha.
No.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
And of course, on the other hand, Mary Shelley might not have felt the need to have the relationship with Percy if Wollstonecraft had lived.
Right.
I think Shelley would have gone on still to be a writer, but she would have written different things if Wollstonecraft had lived,
Oh.
I'm thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking, what keeps, activists like you, Robin, going? What kept Mary Shelley going in the midst of such loneliness and poverty and hatred and ostracism and being called a whore, all the terrible things? And I was thinking it's the women who come before, that even though Wollstonecraft was dead, she had this memory and this idea of her mother that I think really buoyed her, and she wanted to live according to her mother's ideals. And I think for someone like me, I think of you second wave people. I think of Gloria. I think of you, because it's not as though when we write books about women's lives, or when my friends who are writing the lives of Black people, Latinx people, Native people, it's not as though people are saying, thank you so much for bringing these lives to our attention.
The line does not form to the left or the right.
So you have to take this very long view. And I think it is funny, isn't it? We started by saying, wow, there aren't that many dual biographies, but a dual biography gives you a longer view. It gives you a before and an after, what are the results? What are the consequences? What is the legacy that's left behind for both women? And I think the legacy is something we don't always think about enough. So important.
That's right. I always love to quote the Elizabeth Cady Stanton lines about, we are sowing winter wheat. We will not live to reap the rewards, but others will. And you have to believe that. You have to think that, I'm sowing winter wheat. I hope somebody reaps it. I hope it doesn't disappear. And of course, there have been literally, no hyperbole, millions of women who have disappeared, been disappeared intentionally, buried. But you just, it's almost an existential leap of faith. You put it on the page and you hope for the best. God knows that's what they did. And they did this, in this case, in a self-supporting way, while juggling children that the men never participated in, while juggling housework that the men never participated in. Grandiose Shelley suddenly coming into his fatherhood, not so much. I'm so cranky. I'm so pissed off at Shelley, and I'm just so down on Byron and Godwin. I can't take it. And I before this reread, I was still an admirer of Godwin. I can't believe I fell for it. So this is just such a precious volume. It's just divine. What are you working on now?
Well, I'm now working on 18th century America. I'm working on a character that most people don't know, who really helped us think through what a constitution should be, what is the Constitution, and was the only person at the Constitutional Convention who believed in the idea of a direct vote for each citizen. And of course, was outvoted by everybody. So I just was so distressed during Trump's first impeachment at how ill-educated Americans are about our own government, from my students to, my friends.
Yeah.
And I want to think about, how could I write a book that was actually fun to read and lively?
Oh, your books are always lively and fun to read.
Thank you. It sounds like I'm sort of reluctant to talk about it, because 18th century Constitution, you say that to my students and their eyes roll back in their heads, but I'm trying to make it really gripping and fun.
Oh, no. 18th century is just so, it was a great century. 18th and early 19th and this whole Civil War. And I was so amazed to realize that Lincoln was born while Jefferson was still in office. There's a whole bunch of facts that we were never taught these things in school, Charlotte.
No.
Who dare I ask, who is this person?
Well, you can, but only law people know who he is. His name is Jamie Wilson.
Uh-huh.
And according to scholars of the law, he was probably the most important legal mind of that time period, even more important, some say, than Madison. And I think, wow, how is it that we've never heard of him? And you know why we've never heard of him, I think? All those guys, George Washington, Jefferson, they were huge land speculators. They all lived in debt, died in debt.
That's right.
And my guy, he didn't make it. He ended up, he was on the first Supreme Court, and he got thrown into debtor's prison, and that's where he died.
Oh, my
And I think
God.
it was so embarrassing to have a Supreme Court justice, die in prison, that he's been almost erased from our history. But legal historians all know him, and there's a lot of legal scholars have written about him.
Oh, how very, very fun. No, it's a century that now I'm addicted to. Mid 18th to early 19th is just alive and so peopled with people whom we know the wrong things about. Let me put it that way. That discovering and uncovering the real things and then reconciling the contradictions is itself such a joy. I can't wait. When does this come out?
Oh, I'm sure it won't be out for another year and a half, sadly. I'm
Okay.
just, even as I'm talking to you, I'm pacing around in front of my computer thinking, wait.
Yes. Well, you're at that stage. Okay. Lots of luck to the... Oh, Charlotte, thank you. And listen, thank you for Romantic Outlaws. It is a wonderful biographies, and filled with humor and delight and color and gossip, and scholarly work. It's absolutely precious. So the fact that we did Frankenstein last time round and this, maybe next time we'll come back and we'll do Mistress Bradstreet, if the new one isn't out yet, and then we'll do the new one as well. Thank you again so much. And this has been a most wonderful way to celebrate Mother's Day. Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley are superb examples of a mother-daughter team that people can find in Romantic Outlaws and just wriggle with delight about. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. I loved talking to you. It's always so interesting, and it's such an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
It's time for our final break, and then I'll be back with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Hallmark cards can never make for fighting words. As those of you who have read my memoir, Saturday's Child, know, my relationship with my own mother was difficult, challenging, saturated with love, and fraught with fights. Nevertheless, it has not escaped my noticing that the two primal relationships in my life have been having a mother and being one. The second, fortunately, was much more friendly. But when my mother was dying, I wrote a poem called Heirloom, which I collected in my new and selected poems upstairs in the garden. And I decided, after much thought, it was today's fighting words, in all possible meanings of that term. Heirloom. For weeks now, certain hours of every day have been wiped sterile by the visit to her hospital room where, semi-privately, she semi-lives. For weeks I've sourly reveled in the duty while loathing its victim. My philanthropy about as gracious as the bestowal of a poison cup on a thirsty beggar who embodies a convenient excuse, but with a regrettable smell. For days I've watched her reason, fracturing faster even than her body's fragmentation, as each cell gradually detaches itself and shudders off via a method of interentropic travel. For days the medication has made her more intense than usual, cantankerous, weepy, domineering, sentimental, and repetitive. A record that will not break, but always seems about to. The scratch on her soul itself. No wonder she's abrasive. The wonder is, since nothing will help her anyway, that I can still be so ungenerous. But then this afternoon we took each other by surprise at the quite unexpected intersection of insanity and humor. La place de la hallucination. Forget that she frequently remembers I'm her sister, or her mother, or her niece, or myself, her own child, but 4 years old again. Today she had some style, or something in me finally recognized whose style it was I thought I'd made my own. The patent leather shoe with the round white buckle had no business being up there on the night table, even if it did ring so insistently. The fly that walked the track on which the room partitioning curtain could be pulled was going to get run over, but he refused to listen to advice. The teensy lady who perched cross-legged on the windowsill while wearing the whole poinsettia plant right in her hat really should have left much earlier, but people just don't realize how visitors can tire a popular patient out. And whoever had sent the basket of Florida newborn babies' heads certainly had weird taste. And I, who should know better, who at a younger age and chemistry than she have heard radio static stutter in strict rhyme, flinched from a Navajo blanket that snapped its teeth at me, watched beloved faces leer with helpful malice, I find myself explaining to her what is really there. Except she's caught me as suddenly as I catch her. And in astonishment I shrug and say, "You seeing 'em again, huh? Well, what the hell? Why not? What else is there to see?" And miracle of bitter miracle, she laughs. And helpless I am laughing, and the semi-roommate laughs, and the invisible lady in the poinsettia hat can be heard distinctly laughing, and in this space of semi-dying there is life and magic and shared paranoia thicker than water and more clear than blood, and we are laughing while the bright shoe rings and the fly dares death and the oranges clamor to be fed, and all the thousand spear-carrying extras direct from central casting come scurrying in, got up in white, to hustle us apart, as if our waving to each other weren't a sign beyond their understanding, as if the giggly last whisper, "Try to get through the night any old way you can, love. See you in the morning," weren't a hiccuped message encoded too deep in each of all our lonely cells for any deciphering. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at The Robin Morgan, and you can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book of poems, Dark Matter, and my brand new novel, Parallax, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.